Oh, well, okay. Great, great. Everybody, welcome Friday afternoon, and thanks for everybody that's coming in. And I know we're going to have more people join us as we get rolling here. It is 3 o'clock Eastern time, and what a week this has been. Wow, I mean, just unbelievable. So this is an hour of Q&A, and then I'm offering my supporters on X, and thank you very much for that. Of those of you that follow me and have subscribed to me on Substack, thank you very much for that. And then of course locals and Patriot TV. And I want a big shout out to my to the folks at Patriot TV and all the things that Patriot TV has been doing. Frankly, now for almost a solid year. People can find me on X at Jen Flynn. That's GEN Flynn at Jen Flynn, and follow me there. I post things on a daily basis. Sometimes my own, or I repost some things that I find of interest. Also, for people that are subscribing, I do a daily what I'm reading file, and I post that on the subscription side. So part of what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to make sure that on a monthly basis, and we've reset ourselves since the election and really since the inauguration, because I've been so busy prior to the election, just helping to get President Trump reelected, and then going into the inauguration. I spent this past most of this past week up in Washington D.C. Doing all kinds of stuff.
You're muted, sir.
What's that?
They can't hear you.
He can't hear me.
No.
Okay, he is muted. Okay, they can hear me on X. Okay, but some others can't hear me. Okay, well, they're trying to figure that out so you can hear me on X. So I'm going to just keep plowing through this. I mean, there's always something with the technology. Anyway, so a lot going on, and what I want to try to do is reach out to those people that are supporting me, and I really do thank you very much for doing that. It seriously helps my cause, and my cause going forward between now and essentially 2026 is going to be to stay deeply involved in the local elections around our country. As I've always said, local action equals a national impact, and so we must hang on to the House, and we need to hang on to the Senate, and we hopefully will be able to pick up a couple of governor races, some gubernatorial races. Maybe we'll even win the governor's race out in California with the disastrous response by Newsom. Newsom. He's a terrible, terrible human being, and I was so proud to see President Trump down in North Carolina here today. I know a lot of the people down there. I have relatives on the Tennessee side of that border, on what they call over the ridgeline, in a place called Newport, Tennessee. It's where my grandfather was from. So just glad to have the president go down there. He made that promise that he was going to be back, and he absolutely was. And he's made some announcements about who he's putting in charge down there. And thank God that he's there, because there's thousands and thousands of people that are still without homes, and they're going to need a lot of help. So, all right. So what I want to do, I have the questions in front of me here. Questions are starting to roll in. Appreciate that. I don't know if we have our audio. It says it's on, that I'm on mute. Are we good on audio now? So let me know if folks out there, if you're still having audio problems hearing me, then let us know, and we will jump through our hoops to get that squared away. Okay. So let me go right to the questions. I'm going to spend most of this time on questions. I didn't want to spend a lot of time with the introduction, and then the last minute or two, I'll do a quick wrap up. But let me go right to the questions. And the first one is from at Joe Hidalgo. And the question is, while the opportunities appear to be amazing regarding the launching of Stargate, there is much concern regarding an AI control, artificial intelligence control grid, and mRNA vaccines for countless diseases. Here we go again, right, Joe? What are your thoughts on this issue? Well, I was on a podcast earlier today, and I was asked a similar question about the Larry Ellis briefing, I think from the White House, and about creating a vaccine that can, that'll be the end all be all for cancer, using AI and testing people to, their blood and their DNA to see if they have cancer. When does that begin? Does that begin in the womb? Does it begin at the moment of birth? I mean, when does it begin? And the other question is, when does it end? When we can start to make decisions about our health for ourselves. If this forced idea that we have to have a vaccine, because what this will lead to is it'll lead, because I don't think that Trump will ever concede any kind of forcible vaccination. I don't believe that he'll ever do that. I just don't believe that. So, but there are people in our system that want that. And we saw that with the whole Operation Warp Speed and everything else. So what we need is we need to be able to make decisions about our health for ourselves. If there are clear cases and there's things out there that show where somebody is being, that some new miraculous development in the healthcare system has come up with a cure for cancer, or a cure for heart disease, or to make the blind see again, I'm all for it. But once we begin to see that, once that it goes through a real, battery of testing, the rigor of the whole, the years that it takes to develop a vaccine, not this overnight sensation because artificial intelligence says so. I'm not for that. I make my own personal health decisions. Honestly, when I was in the military, I was a pin cushion. And since I've gotten out of the military, I've stopped taking all the shots. I haven't taken a shot since I got out of the military. I learned about 4 years ago, like a lot of people did, about ivermectin. I'm a big believer in ivermectin. And when I first heard about ivermectin being some horse paste, I was like, well, wait a second. They give it to babies for ringworm. So I was like, I'm going to check into this, and I did. I studied it, and now I religiously take ivermectin. So, whatever. That's me. That's my decision, and that's kind of where I'm at. I do want to see cures for these things. Maybe they can be miraculous, but I do want our freedom to be protected, particularly when it comes to our healthcare decisions. So we need to be making those decisions. Okay. From Mary, we are encouraged that President Trump has stripped security clearances from the 51 intel officials, as well as John Bolton and Mike Pompeo. And if you didn't hear, he pulled Fauci's 24-hour limousine service. Just insane, the kind of crap that our government officials do. As a former national security advisor, I had the full authority to be able to go back in and ask for lifetime Secret Service. I never did because it's ridiculous. And so I'm very encouraged that Trump did that. He suspended their security clearances. There's probably going to be some type of investigation, but I would have probably gone further. I probably would have revoked them permanently, never giving them back to these individuals again. Therefore, limiting their ability to be able to make money through government contracts that require security clearances with their former employers, like the U.S. intelligence community or the Department of Defense or the CIA or whatever intel community, or anywhere in government for that matter. And same with John Bolton, and same with Mike Pompeo. Neither of those individuals. I mean, think about the JFK files that Trump has said, let's go ahead and release. They're going to take some time, and I'm not really sure that it's going to meet the expectations that everybody has of releasing the files on JFK, RFK, and Martin Luther King. Mike Pompeo was the director of the CIA and at the State Department, and he was one of the ones. In fact, Trump has said it specifically that Mike Pompeo was one of the people that convinced him to not release the JFK files when Trump was president the first time. So I'm happy that it's all going to happen. I'm glad that these security clearances have been at least suspended. I do believe that all those individuals need to be investigated. They need to be brought in for questioning, and if they've done something wrong, like committed conspiracy to undermine a duly elected president of the United States, meaning Donald J. Trump during his first term, then they should feel the full weight of the law against them. So anyway, that's my judgment on that, and I know what that takes. I hope that their clearances are suspended as of now. What a lot of people don't know is they don't know necessarily where those clearances are held. Some are held at the CIA, some are held, up at the DNI level, some are held in the Department of Defense. A security clearance is held by the originating agency, wherever you got your security clearance initially, by what they call the originating agency. And some of those individuals, most of them are from the CIA, but some will be from the Department of Defense. So there has to be somebody, and I hope the president, asks the question: have they all been suspended? Has it been done? Not do it. Now I want to know if it's been done. Like Fauci, if you take away a particular service from Fauci, has it been done? J6ers, have all the J6ers been released from prison? Because when Trump signed the order and gave him the pardon, it took a lot of us watched it. I was talking to some of them. A lot of them were kept in prison, and the prison guards, were holding them like hostage, even though the president of the United States signed a pardon. So the president, he's going to need to follow up on some of these really critical ones and say, has it been done? Show me that it's been done, or come in and tell me that it's been done. And if he finds out later that the answer was, no, actually, Mr. President, they didn't quite do it, then he ought to fire the person that tells him that it's been, that it's been accomplished. So, okay. That was from Mary. Thank you, Mary. From Danielle. General, are you familiar with the story of Jeremy Harrell, a disabled veteran who was wrongfully targeted by the VA and prosecuted by DOJ for volunteering to help other vets while disabled? He has been sentenced to prison and has to report on January 28th if there is no intervention. I am generally aware of Jeremy Harrell's case, and I do believe that his case should be dropped by the Department of Justice immediately. And if Pam Bondi wants to, she can relook it. But from what I understand and what I know, Jeremy Harrell's case should be dismissed or dropped immediately, because he now belongs back to the DOJ, and the DOJ should dismiss the case based on new evidence that's become available. Because the prosecutors under the previous administration, they abused their prosecutorial authorities, and Jeremy Harrell is really a sad case, and he needs to not go to jail. Or what we need to do is, we're going to do this for these people that were stuckies of the previous prosecutorial abuse by the former Department of Justice under Merrick Garland and President Joe Biden. We're going to have to continue to fight for people that are in prison, or in some of these cases. So when Pam Bondi gets into office, when Kash Patel gets into office, and some of these other prosecutors, Harmeet Dillon, we have got to do a full court press to make sure, and we're going to have to do this on social media. We're going to have to do this through whatever campaigns we can establish, we can create, whether it's going up on the steps of the Department of Justice and keep crying into the wind if we have to, for some of these abuses that happen and these people that are sitting in prison or going to prison for no reason at all. I mean, for no reason at all. We cannot have that. Okay. So Danielle, thank you for asking that. And I'll give you some information at the very end to make sure that I stay on top of that. Okay. Because there's some other people that are monitoring right now that are kind of jumping in, and we're seeing some of the responses. Okay. The next question is from @Mel2Tone. @Mel2Tone. It's pretty good. Sir, are you going to be part of the Trump administration? From DC, who or what is Q? Okay, is that?
Just, sir, are you going to be part of the administration?
Okay, all right, sorry, whatever. Are you going to be part of the Trump administration? What I am doing is I am advising the members of the Trump administration right now as they prepare for confirmation, or as they prepare to go back into the administration. So I feel like I am a part of it. I'm definitely in touch with people on a daily basis. I actually don't feel like I'm not in that mood. I mean, I'm just not in one of those places right now where I think that my bigger impact is right where I'm at, and the ability to be able to sort of be like a, be like a striker on a soccer team. A striker on a soccer field can go can go anywhere on the soccer field. And that's kind of the way I want to be operational right now. I'm helping Tom Holman, myself and a small team, doing the same with Health and Human Services, doing the same with Department of Defense, doing the same with Office of the DNI with Tulsi, doing the same with National Security Council. I've been back and forth with Mike Waltz quite a bit. I'm a big fan of Mike Waltz, known him for a very long time, and others in the administration. So I feel good about where I'm at, and that's, this is a long game. I'm going to play the long game. I am going to get deeply involved in the 2026 local campaigns, the local, state, and regional campaigns. We got to keep the House, and we got to keep the Senate, and maybe we win a couple of governor races. Okay. From Norman. Thank you for that last question. From Norman, Mel Two-Tone. From Norman in Sutton, Massachusetts. Great. I'm from up in that part of the country, Rhode Island. It's freezing up there. Says good. So Norman, good afternoon, General. Good afternoon, Norman. This is Norman Champagny from Sutton, Mass. I love it. Do you see the possibility of President Trump bringing back gold, silver as the basis for U.S. currency, such as aligning silver according to the U.S. Constitution? I don't necessarily see the silver part of your question, but to take everybody back in a quick history, 1973 timeframe, we went off the gold standard, and we went to the U.S. dollar as the currency of choice. Frankly, then that became the currency of choice for global economics and the global economy. Trump does not. He's basically banning central bank digital currencies, which is a good thing. I hope that most of you caught his speech to the World Economic Forum last night. I thought it was brilliant. There's another, like needle in the eye, just like his great historic speech during his inauguration speech, where it was a needle in the eye to all the people that were sitting on the back left. I was, loving watching the faces. It was like pure gold, watching the faces of Biden and Harris and the rest of the hoodlums and thugs back there during his during his speech to the nation, to the world, really, for the inauguration. So, do I see the possibility of Trump bringing back gold as a basis for U.S. currency? Gold is always a basis for U.S. currency because the strength of gold, and frankly bonds and stuff like that, but principally the strength of gold is always a big commodity for the economic system for the United States of America. And that's why so many nations around the world, particularly when Obama was around, and then when during these past 4 years, these horrific 4 years that we experienced, a lot of countries were buying up U.S. gold because they felt like if they did that, then they, and particularly in China, then they could control our economy. I am concerned going forward that we don't have some monopoly of some of these woke corporations come together, particularly banks. Everybody sees online, Bank of America is getting hammered, and that's fine with me. So I think what we need to understand is gold is a rare earth element. It is a commodity. It is a currency that actually strengthens the United States of America when we have gold in our coffers, right? When we have sufficient gold that does provide us that sort of financial foundation within our sort of Federal Reserve system. And I'm not a big fan of the Federal Reserve. I don't know if Trump is going to move back to a gold-backed standard. I don't know that. I do know that he was against the digital currency, which I am against, because it actually a digital form of digital currency is a form of control, and it's a control mechanism that the globalists want, and we don't want that. We don't want that to occur in this country. We want to be able to freely earn, make money, do the kinds of things that we need to do, because we're a capitalist system and society, and we want to be able to have people innovate and make wealth, earn wealth, right? So anyway, So I don't know the details of the answer. I know that there's a lot of consideration going on right now. I mean, Trump's a big fan of this Bitcoin stuff, and I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I'm an expert on it. I'm not. There's a lot of people talking about it. I do think that I am studying it more and more, and so I think people. I would give my counsel to people that are monitoring would be to take a look at Bitcoin, study it, look at some of the machinations of it. There's some experts out there that know quite a bit about it, and go from there. Okay, from Paul. We will take back ownership of the Panama Canal. I think you're asking, no, I'm sorry. Will we take back ownership of the Panama Canal? I'm dyslexic there. And do I think that China will stand down? And so the answer to the second part is no, China will not stand down. Will we take back ownership of the Panama Canal? I think there's going to be a shift in how the Panama Canal operates, functions. I think ownership is going to be certainly a conversation that's going to go on for a long time. Personally, we we gave it up too soon. Jimmy Carter gave it up, and then Barack Obama actually did even more of a disservice, and he doesn't. He should get credit for screwing us even more so, not just here in this country, but down there in the Panama Canal. Um, so will we take back ownership of the Panama Canal? I'm not sure if we want ownership. What we want is we want a relationship, a long-term treaty type relationship with the Panama government, the Panamanian government, that says the United States of America, who built the canal, who it came at a huge cost. 38,000, I think, were killed from various diseases and just physically killed. So I think that we need to have some type of long-term agreement that is concrete, that gives us, maybe it is a form of ownership, maybe it's a form of partnership with the Panamanian government and the Panamanian people. I can tell you, just in the last 24 hours, and I know Rubio's down there, Secretary Rubio's down there now, but I've been in touch with some friends who are down in Panama, and there's a lot of Panamanian people that they don't like it, the fact that the United States is going to go in there like a gorilla and make some demands. There's a lot of other people down there that do like it. They do want the American people back down there in a big way. I will tell you that the Biden administration did nothing to embrace the Panamanian government nor the Panamanian people. Now, the second part is, do I think China will stand down? The Chinese right now control both ends of the Panama Canal, the Gatun locks in the Atlantic side, or the Gulf of America side now, and then basically the Panamanian locks on the Pacific side. So the Chinese are in control, and they have great access, and they have some measure of control because the Panamanian people, or the Panamanian government, gave it to them, because the American government basically had no engagement. We weren't really engaging anybody, and we just kind of, we're so overly focused on the Middle East and Eastern Europe that we've lost sight of the most important hemisphere on the planet when it comes to the United States of America, and that's right here, both the northern and particularly with emphasis the southern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere, which I would include everything from south of Laredo and Juarez and Tijuana down to the I think it's the Horn down there. That southern hemisphere of the world is really the most important right now. We need to come to grips with that. That's kind of, when we talk about America first, we ought to be talking about how that hemisphere is so important for our future, particularly our near future, going into the next couple of years here. So the Panama Canal, the Chinese will not stand down. The Chinese are going to argue this, day and night. It may come to some tension, and so I think we need to be prepared for that tension. The Panama Canal controls about 70% of U.S. trade from the East Coast and the West Coast back and forth, and it is a absolutely vital a national security strategic waterway for our military to conduct operations globally, particularly between the Pacific and Indian Oceans and the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. So it's really, really critical. Probably, for the United States, it's number one most vital waterway in the world. Then, of course, you got the Suez Canal, and then you have the Straits of Malacca out in Southeast Asia. Okay, great question, and thank you for allowing me to kind of expand on all that, Paul. So this next question is from Richard Laurel. Thank you, Richard, for asking. Can these last-minute preemptive pardons by Biden be legally challenged? Are they constitutional? So I'm not a constitutional lawyer. I'm not a constitutional expert. I would tell you that can they be challenged? They probably will be challenged. Are they constitutional? They appear to be constitutional. So that's the answer to the questions. But what is it that we have learned about the pardons? And one of the things about pardons is you can be called back in, and for that period of time that you were pardoned, and for that issue. So if you were pardoned for 4 or 5 things during a 4-year period of time, and Congress or a grand jury or the Department of Justice wants to call you back in to be questioned about those issues, you have to answer those questions. I don't even think you can take the 5th, and because people have given me grief about taking the 5th for the grand juries that I went in front of, which they had nothing to do. The grand jury, I went in front of the grand jury, and I have what's called a pardon of innocence. And one of these days, in fact, I got a book coming out pretty soon about that. But because my case was dismissed, I was never convicted. My case was dismissed because of egregious government misconduct, and I still had to get a pardon. So why did I have to get a pardon if my case was dismissed? It's because a judge, a corrupt Washington, D.C. based federal judge, was totally corrupt, and he knows exactly who he is. So I know a little bit about pardons, but these people can be called back in to be asked to testify, because not everybody got pardoned, right? He pardoned, I think over 8,000 people, which is just an incredible number of people to be pardoned. The next 2 highest were both Democrat presidents. One, I think, was Harry Truman after World War II, and then Barack Obama. Barack Obama might have been number 2. He had quite a number, maybe 2,500 pardons. And then Trump was like less than 100. I mean, it was like right around that kind of a number. So these pardons at the Biden crime scene, I call it a crime scene. His presidency was a crime scene. These pardons were just outrageous, and these people do need to be brought back in. One of the things I guess Trump did was he had, it's small thing, but it matters to the people in the Pentagon, and mattered to Mark Milley, the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He ordered that Milley's picture that's hung up, big old picture hung up in the Pentagon, be taken down. And I got a funny feeling that some of these people are going to be brought in for other purposes that the pardon cannot exempt them from. So enough on pardons. Thank you, Richard, for asking that question. From Rick: what can we local citizens do about the current leadership of the Republican Party of Florida who are denying elected precinct committeemen and committeewomen to access to the meetings and denying them the right to vote? Yeah, we're going to have to challenge in every local level, precinct committeemen, Republican executive committees in counties. We're going to have to really stand up strong against this, because I was really shocked at how much the Republican Party of Florida, the RPOF, they call it, the Republican Party of Florida, went after America First Republican Executive Committee, chairs, and then the people that were in those Republican executive committees in county level. Like I say, local action is how we're going to stitch this country back together. And I think that the establishment, in fact, I know to a degree, because I've been in some of these conversations, the establishment in Florida, like the establishment in the Republican establishment in other states, they weren't big fans of Donald Trump from the beginning. Trump, is a historic figure. Thank God he's our president again. But once Trump is out of office, we're going to see a move by the Republican Party, the establishment of the Republican Party, to retake control of the party. And that structure that's nationwide, the party structure from the RNC on down to every state GOP chair, and then the structure around them, and then the Republican executive committees around every county. I mean, that structure is in place, and for the most part, it is controlled by the Republican establishment. And of course, Trump beat the establishment. Thank God he did. So I think what we're going to find in 4 years, less than 4 years, we're going to start to see a shift back to the establishment. So here in Florida, and what I want nationwide is I want America First people, MAGA, the MAGA crowd. But I want people who believe in America First to really consider getting involved in politics, running for local office, running for Congress, running for senator if necessary, but running for local office and get in there, school boards, county commissioners, things like that. Get in there and mix it up. That's the only way we're going to do it. We can't leave our country to long in the tooth politicians who, frankly, worry more about what is in their pocket than what what's in their town, what's good for their town, or from the place that they come from. So anyway, thank you for asking that, Rick, and I will continue to pay close attention to that and certainly help in Florida where I can. So from DC, do you see a future with the Trump administration? I do. I do see a future with the Trump administration. A lot of things are going to change over time. I mean, everybody saw what happened in the first administration. So, and trust that my overarching goal in life is to make sure that our country is a beautiful country for my children and principally my grandchildren. That's about as far out as I can see, my grandchildren, but that I can see out to the end of this century, because I have studied enough history, and I know my own grandchildren who are young enough today who will, if they live to a ripe old age, they'll still be alive into the next century. So that's kind of my view of where we are historically, looking behind us, and to a degree historically looking in front of us. How do we shape the future? How do we shape history? And so I think in the next couple of years we're going to see a lot of change, and my goal is to help enable that change to the degree that we can. So and I'll always help President Trump. I'll help everybody in his administration. I'm doing that now. From Alpha, is our military and or law enforcement ready in the event that a faction of the terrorists who illegally entered our country under Biden start attacking us from inside our borders? If not, how long would you estimate it to take to ready them against this kind of threat? Semper Fi, General. Alpha. Okay, Alpha. Semper Fi. So I think that our law enforcement is ready. I firmly believe that our law enforcement is ready, and we're starting to see signs of that. I think in the readiness of ICE, as ICE is going around doing some of these raids. So I think we're going to see that our law enforcement is actually ready, but our law enforcement doesn't have the scale that our military can create quickly. I know that our military is not necessarily ready to take on domestic type threats that are going to well, they're not, I was going to say that are going to happen, but that are likely there right now. I understand that the president has given the order to deploy the 82nd Airborne Division down to the border, and I saw earlier today where there's some Marine forces down at the border. I'm all for that, and the fact that they designated the foreign terrorist organizations, or they designated the Mexican cartels foreign terrorist organizations, that's a good thing. So we can use our military to go after them and actually cross border if necessary. There are elements inside of our country, though. I think that's really what you're getting at, Alpha. There are elements inside of our country that are like it's called Tren de Agua, which is a Cartel of the Sun organization, a sub-organization of Cartel del Sol out of Venezuela. And my understanding is we have about 5,000 of them inside of this country right now. These were prisoners who were trained in different activities. And there's a smaller number, but the number I've been given is somewhere between 200 and 400 individuals who were more specially trained and actually given leadership training to then run these 5,000. And I believe that they're inside of this country right now. So we have some threats inside of the country. The Hamas and Hezbollah are other threats. Those are, of course, they emanate from the Middle East, but they're here physically in this country, as well as other gangs that are now possibly going to be, if they're tied to these other cartels south of the border that are designated as foreign terrorists and foreign terrorist organizations, then those cartels that are coordinating and conspiring here in this country, they are also going to be designated. They can also be designated as foreign terrorists. So there's a lot of action. I will tell you that our military has to get off of its rear end and get itself prepared to fight the fights that we are going to have right here, across our border, and the potential for our domestic situation to unravel here if we're not careful with some of these threats that we are facing. Never mind Antifa, right? Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and Antifa are still out there. We have that problem right here in Florida. So Alpha, I am with you. Yeah, I appreciate your support too, Alpha, your service, and our military. I just can't wait for Pete Hegseth to get in there and shake things up. I know he's going to have to get rid of some of these generals and admirals, probably some of the senior enlisted too, because some of these senior enlisted have been enabling this woke DEI crap. And we got to get go Pershing or go George Marshall on them. Pershing during World War I, Marshall was his assistant. Basically an aide to General Pershing. And Pershing went in there and he relieved like 6 division commanders during World War I. I think it was 6 division commanders and a couple of corps commanders. What we didn't have a joint staff at that time. Marshall came in World War II, immediately when we joined World War II, and he went ahead and got rid of a bunch of people, the dead wood, and he brought in people that he knew from his previous experiences. And of course, those, and we know the result of World War II. So there's going to have to be some of that. Some of that's going to have to be done. We cannot continue to put up with these generals and admirals, and like I said, some of the senior enlisted that allow this woke DEI crap into our culture in the military. Our military is all about fighting, preparing, training, fighting, and winning. And the key word is winning. So thanks again, Alpha. All right. From Ohio, Amy. Catherine Herridge is showing X picture of herself at Gitmo. What is your take on this picture? Yeah, it caught my attention, and I think I posted something about it. I like Catherine. Catherine's a great friend of mine. I've known her for many years, probably 20 years. And Catherine is probably one of the bravest investigative journalists going. I think what she's doing, because I saw a follow-on walk-around interview that she was doing down at Gitmo, and I don't think it was inside. I think it was outside the gate still. So I haven't stayed on top of that because there've been some other priorities that I've been honing in on because of the signing of these executive orders, etc. So I think what Catherine is doing is she's doing an investigative piece on Guantanamo, particularly the prisoners that still are down there, and then what is the future of Guantanamo? What's the future that what is Guantanamo going to be used for in the future? I actually have been to Guantanamo a couple times actually. I'd actually like to see Cuba come underneath the umbrella of American leadership. Trump was right to redesignate Cuba as a foreign terrorist state, right? Or foreign terrorist state. And I'm for that. I think that's good. I'd actually like to figure out how we can get the Cuban people to, stand up against their government, throw their government out and then embrace democracy and embrace the United States of America. God, what Cuba could become if it got rid of the, communism and the Chinese influence, particularly Chinese influence these days. as well as still, a lot of Russian influence. But anyway, so thanks, Ohio Amy, for asking that. From Lowell Hostat, what is the probability of warlike conditions in the United States instigated by illegals? So it's a great question. It's a great question. What is the probability of warlike conditions? And President Lincoln, during the Civil War, he had to he basically uh, enacted or removed the writ of habeas corpus. Again, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but and then what it allowed him to do is it allowed him to take extraordinary measures. So, and President Lincoln believed so much in our Constitution and was such a student of our founders that no matter what was going to happen, unless he was killed, which he eventually was killed because of his beliefs, like Kennedy, like John F. Kennedy was killed because of his beliefs. Lincoln fought tooth and nail as president of the United States to keep our country united. And I think Donald J. Trump is in that boat right now. And I think, like Time Magazine, called him the president of the divided states of America, because these people hate America. Absolutely. The left wing corporate media, whether it's magazines, online, or mainstream media, television networks, they hate America. They are anti-American. And so warlike conditions, if in fact these illegals start to rise up, it gets back to the earlier question that was asked about, what about what about these different gangs and stuff like that, right? Is our military prepared? Is our law enforcement prepared? I will tell you one thing that I do know: the American people aren't going to put up with it. American, legal, free-thinking, patriotic American citizens are not going to put up with it. The leadership that is going into these positions that Donald Trump has chosen, they are not going to be allowed by him to put up with it, and actions will be taken. So if there are a certain set of criteria or conditions or circumstances that start to lead us into a position where our nation is finding ourselves with these small skirmishes, inside of our own country, led by illegals, or God forbid if it's led by these cartels, these now newly designated foreign terrorist organizations, they're in big trouble. And the American people won't put up with it. And frankly, like I used to say, if you came into my neighborhood, we would know that you're there. And if you came in there for the wrong reasons, you would not be there much longer. You would not be there long if you came into my neighborhood for the wrong reasons when I was a kid. So, and that's kind of the way I think. That's the way I like Americans to be. I like Americans in their own communities to be a bit, busybody, and kind of keep an eye on things, right? Of course, inform your local law enforcement to be able to respond. Hopefully, your law enforcement isn't woke DEI type people, and they're responsive to the needs of their community. But we're gonna see. We'll see what happens here in these next coming weeks. Tom Homan, pray for Tom Homan. If you don't do anything else, pray for Tom Homan and the success of his mission. Okay, from Tony. Given the current rate of advancement in technology, what skills or fields would you recommend young people study who like to contribute as much as possible to America's future? Yeah. So, I could talk about, get into AI, get into cyber. There's 700,000 cyber jobs in this country that are open up right now. 700,000. It's amazing. So, cyber. Do you need a 4-year degree from MIT to get that job? No. You can figure it out online. But I'm more, I'm going to take a step back on this because I have a bachelor's degree. I have master's degrees. I got all this education that I got from the military. But for a young kid, as I look around at what do we need right now, we need electricians, we need plumbers, we need carpenters, I mean, look at just up in North Carolina alone. I can tell you in the state of Florida, there are jobs, signs for jobs everywhere for basic services, basic kinds of capabilities, but skills that are not, you don't just wake up and become a carpenter. You don't just wake up and become a plumber, especially if you want to get licensed and you want to get to a master's level and you want to earn enough money to where you can raise a family and have, and live the American dream. So those kind of basic services, basic capabilities, and I call them basic, but I have a very good friend that lives out in California. He's a master electrician. He makes a killing, and because he's a master, he earned it. He worked hard to get it. He's got a great family, and he's called on all the time for his services. I do know that um, the just and again, I don't want to get into too much of the weeds here, but those are the kinds of things. Computer skills are still in demand, high demand. People with liberal arts degrees out of colleges and universities aren't. The other thing, and I would say this, to moms and dads out there, or young people that are listening, or friends, people that have young friends that are contemplating, what should I do? I mean, I would start looking at the military again. Under the Biden administration, I said, let's wait to see what happens, because there's no way in the world that I want these people, our young men and women in this country, serving under these woke leaders that are in there right now. I'm dealing with something right now to try to help a young man who's being abused at one of our bases. It's just insane. I'm going to be ripping into the commanding general here probably in the next 24 hours. So I do want people now to start thinking about joining our military, joining our Army, join our U.S. Marines, right? Join our Navy, join the Air Force, and then get in there and mix it up. If you don't, if it's not something it's meant for a lifetime of service, then get in there, serve your country, and learn a skill, and then go on and do bigger and better things in life. Back in your communities or back in hometown America. So anyway, that's Tony. Thank you for asking that. From Michelle Pete 77. Michelle Pete 77. I know who you are. Do you think there's any truth to Putin asking for extradition of Fauci to be tried in Russia for crimes against humanity? I actually saw that. I saw that. And I was like laughing at that. And the thing that Fauci needs to be aware of is that he received a pardon for the crimes that he committed here in the United States of America. Okay. And many people know over the last few years, from the days of all the stuff, once we started figuring this out, there's an international criminal court that exists. It's in The Hague over in Europe, and there are going to be a lot of things that Herr Fauci is going to have to answer for. I don't know if there's any truth to that. I saw it. I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if others out there internationally, and frankly, class action lawsuits directed against Fauci and the U.S. government that I believe are going to pop up all over the place. That people are going to go after people like Fauci. So if that means somebody overseas, says, well, if you travel here, buddy, we might arrest you. Otherwise, what we might do is we might request extradition. So my guess is that Fauci's life is going to be a real miserable, little life, and frankly, from everything that we have learned about what he did, so Fauci, he lied. Birx, remember the scarf lady? She has admitted in her book that they lied. They lied to Trump. Fauci, we now know he funded the biological weapons in Wuhan lab in China. He funded it. U.S. taxpayers paid for it, and then he lied about it in the United States of America, and then he instituted the biological weapon in through the various vaccines that we got. I mean, this guy. I asked a good lawyer, and I did it online. Did it on an X response, not a post, but a response to a post where I asked, does a pardon mitigate murder? I don't know. I don't know if a pardon mitigates murder, but we're going to learn a lot in the next couple of weeks here. And all of us on the world of social media, all of us in communities, we need to be demanding answers from our elected leaders. Okay, I got to watch my time. We're at 3:50. I'll go about another 8 minutes here, folks, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you guys so much for participating. Thank you for your questions. I mean, we have a lot of people online right now. From Kim Blastos, thank you. General, is he bringing in previous disloyal tech giants? Because if he doesn't, our adversaries will. Interesting. It's an interesting perspective, interesting way to ask the question, Kim. So thanks for asking that. That's something that I'll continue to follow through on to see if that actually is an assumption that we haven't made yet, right? I don't know the answer to that, but I can tell you it made me sick to my stomach watching Zuckerberg from Facebook, Bezos, and then there was another couple other tech titans that were in the inauguration. They're right there with the family and the members of the cabinet. These people, had Trump lost, Trump would be in prison right now for life, and all those tech titans, they'd be censoring us right now. We wouldn't even be able to do this kind of stuff. Zuckerberg spent $400 million to defeat Donald Trump in the fake election that we had in 2020. So I got no time for these people. So yeah, I think you're right to call them disloyal. I don't know the answer to your question. All I do know is we have to pay very close attention to it. So thank you, Kim, for asking that. And your point about, will the adversaries bring them in? The principal adversary is China, and they already have. And the Chinese use these guys in a big way. They have all kinds of business arrangements in China right now. And so we're gonna have to really pay attention to these next couple of weeks, certainly these next couple of months, not the next couple of years. Things have to happen in the next 30 days. I'm expecting a lot of things to happen in the next 30 days. I'm not waiting for I'm not waiting for a 100-day plan. I want to see action in 30 days. And we're already seeing a lot from Trump. Christ, the fact that he's down in North Carolina today, and I think he's going to California, is a good thing. From Matt Cubbage. We have an 8-year-old currently in a public charter school. We are strongly considering a Bible-based homeschooling program until President Trump can make massive improvements with the education system. Do you have thoughts on these issues? Absolutely. So first of all, I hope that Trump shuts the Department of Education down. I hope that Linda McMahon, who he assigned as the secretary, is the last secretary of the Department of Education. That's what I want. I don't know if he's going to do that. We'll see. But that's what I would like. That's speaking for myself. So from you, Matt, yeah, if you have your child, your elementary child in a private charter school right now, homeschooling is another aspect of education other than the public school system that we have. That a lot of children in our country, particularly in inner cities, they're sort of locked into it, and it totally sucks. Public education in the United States of America is abysmal. We are at the bottom. We are at the bottom of the list of nation states that actually have any kind of public education system that actually functions. So it doesn't. It does not work. So one of the things that Trump has talked about, he talked about this during the campaign, and I know he's talked about it again a couple of weeks back, where he's talking about changing the tax codes to give people like you and those that are homeschooling like significant tax breaks. So you're not paying money into a public school education system in your local county, and you're trying to pay for a private charter school for your kid, or you're homeschooling, or for those that homeschool, right? So I know that's one of the areas that Trump is going to have to really jump on here quickly. And we need to have those tax breaks so you get money back, in taxes, or you don't pay a certain tax. If you are able to prove that you have a child that you're not sending to a public education in your county, and you're sending to a charter school, or you decided to send them to homeschooling, then you should be able to. You should not have to pay the taxes for the education system, because I think that the numbers that I'm aware of generally, it's around $10,000 per person, per taxpayer in our country today that actually pays that amount of money for public school education. Like a guy like me, I don't have kids anymore, and I'm paying for public school education, right? So should I? I actually don't have a problem with that, I mean, with me being able to do that, I don't have a problem with that. Partly because it's an affordability issue, but it's kind of like you say, why should I have to pay, taxes for a public school education? But I think that number one, I think that the education should, the people that run our education system should be our parents, and at the state level on down. The federal government has to get out of the business of public school education. Okay, I got a couple minutes left. Um, uh, Christine, I'm going to answer a couple more quick questions. Matt, that's a great question. Thank you for that. And I'll follow up with a way that you folks can get a hold of me, because I have some other things about homeschooling that I think need to happen. Christine, do you align with Trump's thoughts on U.S. pulling U.S. funding out of NATO after other countries are failing to meet the 2%? Absolutely, absolutely. We pay so much. We pay for NATO. We pay a lot for the United Nations. These countries have to pay their fair share. They have to. And if they don't, we're being dragged into war right now in Europe that could turn into a nuclear war. And if NATO has any country that's not paying their fair share is not paying, I'm not talking about like I don't want these countries to just start paying their 2% this year. If they've been in NATO for 10 years and they haven't paid their fair share, then they owe 10 years in arrears. Okay, Germany. I can tell you this because it's one of the first things that I did when I was the national security advisor for President Trump. I showed him a chart that showed all of the nations of NATO at that time and how far back in arrears. I mean, how far back had they not been paying their bills? And there are countries like Germany and others who weren't paying their bills at all. They had not been paying for years. And so we can't just charge them for showing up today. They should be paying us. They should be paying us in arrears. Talking about that last question about gold way back up. They can pay us in gold. They can pay us in other ways, other commodities that they might have, but they need to pay. Otherwise, why are we part of that? And just one other big picture item on NATO. I do think that we need to relook the whole NATO issue. Okay. All right. I'm looking at clocks here. I got 3:57. I'm okay. Let's go. Yeah, one last question, Ryan, because Trump mentioned it today. He's thinking about getting rid of FEMA. I think that FEMA could be easily privatized. I know of a company that right now that gets grabbed up by FEMA all the time. Superb company. A couple of friends of mine who are former veterans, and they are in the upper tier management of it. They do superb work when they're asked to do. They have great leadership. It's a private company. That private company could be tied into disaster relief. The government comes in, hires that company and others. We don't need to have a monopoly. There's a lot of others. There's a couple of other friends that do disaster recovery. So anyway, okay. The admin, is it admin at General Flynn? What's the email that we? Huh? Contact. Thanks for everybody that helped me set this up today. What I want people to know is if you have other questions, or some of the people that I did say reach back out, you can go to contact@generalflynn.com, contact@generalflynn.com, and send us your cards and letters at that email address. I will do this monthly. Thanks to everybody that helped set this up. I hope you got something out of it. We've had thousands of people on here, and thank you for all your questions. Keep sending those questions. Keep pushing me on X. I'm on Truth Social as well, but I do a lot more. I'm more active on X just because it's a bigger audience, and I say what I mean. So God bless everybody. God bless America. Pray for Donald Trump. Say some prayers for Tom Homan. He's got a monumental task. And where you can in your own local communities, help out. Okay? See you, everybody.